My name is Kayla. I'm 33 years old, born and raised in a traditional American family in Austin, Texas, where expectations were neatly wrapped in watchful stares and dinner tables never missed the question, "So, what's your plan for the future?" In my house, there was an unspoken rule. If you're a daughter, you're expected to fit perfectly into the mold our parents created. Go to college, preferably Vanderbilt or Rice. Graduate, work in an office with a nameplate, a dress code, and most importantly, a retirement plan. Get married before 30, have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and live no more than 20 minutes from your parents so they can conveniently drop by on weekends and teach you how to salt your stew properly. I used to think I'd do exactly that. Until I was 22, in my final year studying finance at UT Austin, when I realized I felt like I was sitting in a locked box. I woke up every day with a silent question: is this really going to be my life? I loved colors, shapes, light, things that in my family were dismissed as artsy nonsense. Switching my major to interior design was the first shock I gave my family. My mom, Susan, responded with a sigh I'll probably remember forever. My dad, Richard, simply flipped the newspaper and said flatly, "You're giving up stability to draw chairs?" I didn't argue. I packed my things and moved into a tiny studio apartment in Chicago, where I started an unpaid internship at a boutique design firm. My parents called it chasing a fantasy. They regularly sent me links like top 10 stable careers for women or why getting married before 30 sets you up for life. I tried explaining gently. Then came the debates. And finally, silence. The farther I got from them physically, the closer I felt to myself. I started landing my own clients, got invited to collaborate on projects in New York, then Boston, Seattle, even London. The work was freelance, but not flimsy. I learned how to work remotely, pitch ideas over Zoom, send drafts at midnight, and receive feedback across clashing time zones. But I never felt tired from it. On the contrary, for the first time in my life, I felt alive. At 30, when I skipped Thanksgiving to complete a major contract with a boutique hotel chain in Switzerland, my mom texted me one line: "If even family comes second to your job, who do you plan on putting first?" I read that message in a cold kitchen in Zurich, holding a cup of black tea, unable to stop a quiet, bittersweet smile. I had spent my 20s trying to make them understand. But the truth is, not everyone is ready to see you become something they can't imagine. I didn't get married at 25 like they wanted. I don't have kids or a perfect house with a white picket fence. But I do have my own design studio, a team of talented collaborators, projects stretching from Los Angeles to Tokyo, and a life that I know, without a doubt, is mine. Built by me, brick by brick, drawing by drawing. Still, to my parents that's not enough. Because in their view, if I don't have a husband who's a doctor or an engineer, then everything I have is just an illusion. Then, one day, I got a wedding invitation from my cousin, with a handwritten note from my mom. "Hope your imaginary boyfriend can make it this time." I read the card 3 times. Not angry, not sad, just sighed. Because they didn't know, the man they called imaginary had just booked a flight from Singapore to make it to the party with me. And not only is he real, he's about to make everyone in that room see me differently. I used to think, if I was patient enough, my parents would understand. That if I proved I was happy and successful, they'd stop asking, "Why aren't you married yet? Is working online even a real job? Or is your boyfriend even real?" I was wrong. When I told them I was engaged to Logan, an international aviation consultant who splits his time between Singapore and Abu Dhabi, my mom's first reaction wasn't joy. It was a raised eyebrow followed by a skeptical, "Oh, do you have a photo?" she asked. I opened my phone and scrolled to a picture of us at Marina Bay, hand in hand, beaming, with Singapore's dazzling lights in the background. She glanced at it and handed it back with a dramatic sigh. "You know Photoshop is really advanced these days, right?" I froze. I had braced for them not being excited, but for my own mother to imply I fabricated a relationship? That I edited a man into existence to impress them? That cut deeper than any critique before. She didn't stop there. She brought it up at a family dinner, joking. Kayla says she's engaged, but no one's seen him. No photos, no video calls, no presents. Might be a model from an interior design magazine. The table burst out laughing, like I'd told a funny story. I sat there gripping my water glass, hands trembling. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. But I said nothing. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew anything I said would be twisted into, Kayla's being dramatic, why so sensitive? Or worse, guilty conscience. Worse than doubt is pity. They didn't see me as a grown woman making her own choices. They saw me as a failed child trying to seem okay after missing the life train, as my aunt put it. A woman in her 30s, unmarried, living far from home, of course she's lonely. Maybe she made him up to feel less empty. She whispered to my mom, but loud enough for me to hear every word. I left that dinner in silence. No one called after me. No one apologized. Logan called the moment I got in the car. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concerned. I paused, then laughed softly. "My family thinks you don't exist." He was quiet for a beat. "Then maybe I should show up properly," he said, calm and deep. "I've got a work trip in New York next month. Want me to accidentally appear at your cousin's engagement party?" I laughed, this time not to hide my feelings, but because I knew something was about to change. "You sure? They'll analyze every inch of you." "I'm real. I'm flying real. And I really love you," Logan said. They, on the other hand, seemed to need a reality check. I leaned back, watching streetlights blur past the car window. What I felt wasn't satisfaction about some kind of revenge, but relief. That someone was finally standing beside me, and this time, I wouldn't endure alone. I'd walk into that room differently, not begging for trust, but putting an end to years of doubt, belittling, and being treated like a joke. They used to laugh. But at my cousin Madison's engagement party, no one will be laughing when Logan walks in. And I'll be there, right next to him. Not to prove anything, but to show them. I never needed their belief to live my truth. But now, they won't be able to look away. The engagement party was held at a luxury resort on the edge of Lake Tahoe. Every detail meticulously arranged, from silk runners down the aisle to a jazz band playing under a glass-roofed garden. My whole family was there, dressed to impress, eyes gleaming with pride as if their golden niece was marrying royalty. I arrived alone. Logan was still in a meeting in San Francisco, but he said he'd try to make it in time. I wasn't worried. I knew he would. The moment I stepped in, every eye turned. Not because of my one-shouldered deep red dress or the elegant updo, but because I was still alone. My aunt, Madison's mom, walked over with a deliberate smile. "Kayla, are you still single?" Then she chuckled, glancing around. "Or are we still waiting for the mystery boyfriend to fly in from Asia?" Laughter rippled around the table. I didn't respond. I just nodded slightly and walked straight toward the reception area, where Madison was taking photos with her fiancé, Kyle. A dentist, the textbook definition of the stable son-in-law my family always dreamed of. Madison hugged me like a true sister. She was the only one who never mocked me. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her eyes sparkling. "I hope today won't be too exhausting for you." I smiled and nodded, but I knew the real exhaustion was just beginning. I hadn't planned to say anything at the party. I just wanted to come, congratulate my cousin, and quietly leave. But when the host invited family members to come up and say a few words, my mom pushed me toward the stage. "Say something, Kayla," she said, her voice sweet as honey but her eyes sharp as a blade. It'd be weird if the eldest sister didn't speak. I stepped up, my heart beat steady. Everyone looked at me like they were expecting a train wreck. I held the mic and looked across the room, at faces that had all, at one point, doubted me, dismissed me, labeled me a past-her-prime dreamer. Madison. I began calmly. It's beautiful to see you loved, trusted, and celebrated by everyone here. Not all of us have had that. So if you do, hold on to it, because that's the most precious thing. Silence, then a few scattered claps. I stepped down, and then the sound of rotor blades. At first it was a faint hum, but it grew louder, sharper, slicing through the stillness. Heads turned upward. A helicopter was descending onto the landing pad just beyond the golden maple trees. My aunt lowered her champagne glass. My mom gripped the tablecloth. My cousin's eyes widened. Madison looked at me, her mouth slightly open, speechless. The helicopter doors swung open. Logan stepped out, wearing a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, his brown hair tousled from the wind, carrying a small gift box. He walked across the lawn like someone used to attention, but his eyes searched for only one person. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his deep voice cutting clearly through the stunned silence. "Air traffic." A few quiet chuckles, but mostly, he walked up, gently took my hand, and whispered, "Did I make it in time?" I nodded, eyes still locked on my mother, frozen in her silk-cushioned chair, hands clenched white. She said nothing. No one did. Logan turned to the MC with a polite smile. "I'm not giving a speech, but if anyone was still wondering if I'm real, I hope that's cleared up now." The whole room erupted. Not in laughter, but in wide eyes, hushed murmurs, and a feeling I couldn't quite name, but it felt a lot like collapse. I didn't need to win, but in that moment, I knew. I had reclaimed myself, in front of the people who once made me question it the most. Logan didn't need to say much. His presence alone silenced every assumption in that room like someone had hit pause. He walked confidently to greet everyone, starting with Aunt Martha, notorious for judging people by shoe brands and watch sparkle. "Lovely to meet you. Madison told me you used to design wedding dresses? I've just partnered with a fashion brand in Milan. Maybe we should talk." Aunt Martha nodded nonstop, her face flushed, and for the first time ever, had nothing to criticize. Logan wasn't just impressive because of the helicopter or his looks. It was how he spoke. Confident, never arrogant, never forced. He shook hands with Uncle Ron, who once said I probably made up a boyfriend to show off. Logan said simply, "Kayla mentioned you launched the first successful shipping company in this region. I admire entrepreneurs who start early." Uncle Ron didn't just laugh. He patted Logan's back. "Looks like Kayla's finally got a good eye." My mom stood in the far corner, hand still resting on her wine glass, her eyes visibly scrambling to catch up. Logan didn't avoid her. He walked over, offered a firm but respectful handshake. "Ms. Linda, it's a pleasure. Kayla's told me so much about you." She gave a slight nod, glancing at me before replying. I've heard a lot about you too. Things are clearer now." I wasn't sure if that was an acknowledgement or a quiet surrender. But for my mom, saying nothing negative was already progress. My dad, Jeff, approached a few minutes later. He was a quiet man, always serious, like a contractor evaluating a new foundation. Logan spoke first. "I understand you developed nearly the entire west end of the city. That's visionary work, sir." Jeff nodded and shook Logan's hand. No expression, but I caught the small twitch at the corner of his mouth. The same look he gave whenever he accepted something, without admitting he was wrong. Then came my younger brother, Sean. He was standing near the cake table, pretending to taste frosting, but his eyes hadn't left Logan since the moment he arrived. Sean had mocked me the most when I first talked about my long-distance relationship. I started to walk past when he called out. "Kay," Sean said softly. He doesn't look like I thought." I crossed my arms. "What do you mean?" He scratched his head. "Like, I couldn't picture someone like that actually showing up here. I mean, he's good. Really good." I didn't say anything, but my eyes probably said enough. Sean looked down, then mumbled, "If I ever said anything out of line, I was just worried you'd get hurt." I stared at him. Not a full apology, but the closest thing I'd ever gotten from Sean. And for now, that was enough. The whole tone of the party had changed. The people who once whispered behind my back were now crowding around Logan, asking about his work, his flights, his life in the Middle East. They no longer looked at me with pity. Instead, there was curiosity, and for the first time in years, a hint of respect. Madison walked over, cocktail in hand, eyes gleaming. "He's real, and even better than I imagined. You didn't have to do anything. He changed the whole room with one handshake." I smiled. "It wasn't about changing them. You know that. I just needed them to stop laughing." She nodded. "They're not laughing anymore. They're looking up to you." I glanced around, and she was right. The room had shifted. I was no longer the whimsical daughter, no longer the last one unmarried. I was the woman who had built a career, a love, and a life. And for the first time, everyone had to acknowledge it. After Madison's engagement party, I didn't expect any calls or messages from my family. I was used to the silence that followed our encounters. But this time, something was different. Less than a week later, in the family group chat usually reserved for food photos and church updates, I saw something that made me pause. A photo of Logan and me by the wedding cake, posted by my mother, with a caption, "Turns out Kayla didn't choose too badly after all." Below the photo, Aunt Hartha commented, "Tall and charming too." And Uncle Greg dropped a clapping emoji. No one mentioned the imaginary boyfriend. No one asked if the photo was real or edited. That same day, my dad, who never used social media and never showed interest in design, sent me a private link to an Architectural Digest article. The title read, "The Women Redesigning America's Boutique Hotels." And in it was my name, Kayla Morgan. He wrote only one line. "Nice article. Your section on contrast design was convincing." I read that message at least 3 times, not because it was emotional, but because it was the first time my father ever acknowledged my work, without calling it a phase or a risk. Those changes didn't come with a bang. They arrived softly, like a passing breeze, but left behind something real. A week later, my mom called. She didn't start with a greeting, just said, "Are you busy? I wanted to ask you something." I pulled out my earbuds and sat on the balcony, staring out at the high rises of Chicago. "I'm listening. I wanted to ask, for Aunt Sandy's living room, do you think gray or beige would go better with the lighting?" I nearly laughed. "You're calling to ask about interior design?" I asked, half skeptical, half amused. "Well, I saw the photos you posted on Instagram. They looked professional." I paused, then said, "Gray, if the room has west-facing windows?" She nodded like she was actually taking notes. And then, "For some reason," she said slowly, "I know I've been hard on you. Maybe I was wrong to think there's only one path to success." I didn't respond, because I knew if I did, I might not be able to keep my voice steady. "Logan," she continued, "he seems serious and thoughtful." I couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, I think so too. When are you two thinking of having the wedding?" "Not sure yet," I replied. "We're not rushing, but if we do, I'll let you know ahead of time." She didn't say more, but before hanging up, she added, "If you need help, don't hesitate to ask. I'm not great with your modern design stuff, but I do know how to pick wedding flowers." As the screen dimmed after the call, I felt something settle inside me. Not because my mother had completely changed, but because, for the first time, she opened a door, even if just slightly, to step toward me, instead of waiting for me to come back to her. That evening, Logan returned from a short flight to Toronto. He set his bag down, walked straight to the kitchen, and asked, You look different. Something happened? I told him everything. The family group photo, the article my dad sent, the call with my mom, the part about wedding flowers. He didn't say much, just poured me a glass of white wine and sat beside me. "One step at a time," he said. "They're moving." I nodded. "Slowly, but it's real." "Like a plane getting ready for takeoff," he smiled. "It starts slow, but then it reaches a speed where it just lifts off." I leaned my head on his shoulder, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. I knew they'd never be perfect. There would still be moments of doubt from my mom, times my dad hesitated between acceptance and skepticism. But I never needed flawless approval. I just needed them to see me. And for the first time, I knew they were starting to. 3 months after that conversation with my mom, I received an invitation to speak at the Global Business Leadership Summit in Dubai, a gathering of founders, investors, and innovators reshaping their industries. Logan would be speaking on a panel about the future of urban aviation. I was invited to share how I built a cross-continental luxury design brand without a single venture capital dollar. I read the invitation email while sitting at my favorite cafe near the studio in Chicago, and I instantly knew what I had to do next. I picked up a pen and handwrote on 2 of the thick, formal invitations printed by the organizers. "Once, you asked if I was serious about my life. This is the answer." I signed them, sealed the ivory envelopes with a wax stamp bearing my name, and mailed them. No email, no heads up, no explanation. 4 days later, my mom called. No small talk. "What should we wear?" I smiled. "Evening business attire, but nothing over the top. Dubai will take care of the rest." My parents arrived on a golden afternoon. Logan picked them up in an electric car at Al Maktoum International, not to impress. We'd already done the helicopter thing. This time, I just wanted everything to be in rhythm, just enough for them to see and not be able to unsee. Our apartment was on the 48th floor of a glass tower overlooking the palm-shaped man-made island. White and olive tones filled the space. Italian stone floors, floor-to-ceiling windows opening to a wide balcony with views of the Persian Gulf. On the coffee table sat the blueprint I was working on for a boutique hotel in Morocco. My mom stepped in silently. She looked around, gently touching the walnut Scandinavian-style table, then paused in front of an abstract painting, one I had created and exhibited in Tokyo. "This place," she began, then stopped. My dad stood by the window, staring out at the sea. After a long pause, he spoke without turning around. "I never imagined you living like this." I said nothing. I just offered them mint tea that Logan had brewed and then showed them around the building. The hanging gardens, the infinity pool, the yoga studio overlooking the desert. That night, I walked onto the main stage of the summit in a custom cream suit, my hair in a low bun, wearing only small pearl earrings. Logan sat in the front row, beside my parents. The spotlight cast a soft haze over the room of nearly 300 people, like a quiet theater. I didn't start with achievements or awards. I spoke about being underestimated, about what it felt like to sit in a room full of family and still feel unheard, about the loneliness of being labeled the one who chose wrong. I said there were days I lived only on passion and belief in myself, because no one else did. I talked about learning to build my own seat when no one would offer one. The room was silent. I looked down at the front row. My mom adjusted her collar. My dad sat with his hands clasped on his lap, eyes fixed on me. After the talk, I stepped down into a stream of people, shaking hands, exchanging cards, asking to collaborate. A Swiss executive wanted me to design their new European hotel chain. A Dubai publisher wanted to write a book about my journey. My dad stood beside me, nodding and shaking hands like he was my manager, and my mom, she only said one thing to Logan as we sat down for dinner at a rooftop restaurant. "Thank you for believing in her when we didn't know what to believe in." Logan smiled. "You don't need to thank me. Kayla did it all on her own. I just stood beside her." I didn't expect redemption or apologies. But that look in my mother's eyes, for the first time, was unmistakably pride. And I understood. Success isn't about proving who is right or wrong. It's about reclaiming your freedom. The freedom to live, to choose, and to be seen as who you always believed you were. As I stepped off the stage that night, the spotlight still glowed behind me. The applause had faded, but in my heart something still echoed, like the sound of my past, from all the years I fought to keep from being swallowed by doubt. I didn't search for my parents' eyes as I left the stage, but I felt them, as clearly as standing in the rain. You don't need to look up to know the drops are falling. Logan was the first to hug me. He whispered in my ear, "You just made the whole room go silent, and you just made me fall in love with you all over again." We returned to the front row, where my parents were still seated. My mom dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. She avoided my gaze, but that motion, for the first time in years, wasn't to hide discomfort, but to hold back emotion. My dad didn't cry. I don't think he knows how. But he was the first to stand when the talk ended, and the last to stop clapping after everyone else sat down. The slowness of his applause meant more to me than any compliment ever written. After dinner, as the crowd thinned out, he approached me. Hands in his dress pants, face calm but familiar. "You know," he began, his voice low and a bit shaky, "I used to think art was just a hobby, that you were chasing something vague." I stayed quiet. I waited. But tonight, I saw the people listening to you. I saw how they looked at you, and I realized you're not just creating beauty, you're creating value. For yourself, for others, for this world. He paused, then said slowly, clearly, "I'm proud of you, Kayla." I had never heard him say those words. Not when I got into college, not when I opened my first studio, not when I made the magazine cover. But this time, in a country halfway across the world, in front of hundreds of strangers, I heard it. I nodded, a soft gesture of gratitude. And strangely, I didn't cry. Maybe because I had grown enough to understand, not everyone knows how to love you the right way from the start. But when they finally learn, their recognition isn't just a reward. It's a milestone, the end of a long, lonely road. My mom came over afterward. She was quiet for a few seconds, then gently smoothed the shoulder of my jacket. Just like she used to do when I had school competitions as a kid. "You spoke beautifully. Honestly." Her voice softened. I was so afraid of you failing that I didn't realize you had already succeeded, in your own way." I rested my hand lightly on her shoulder. "I understand, and I've never blamed you for worrying. I just wish you'd believed in me sooner." "I wish that too," she whispered. "But I'm here, now, today, to tell you I won't doubt you again." We didn't need to hug tightly. We just stood there, side by side, looking out from the hotel balcony, where the lights of Dubai flickered like stars sewn onto velvet. That night, back at the apartment, Logan and I opened a bottle of chilled white wine. He poured 2 glasses but only took a sip before setting his down. "Tonight," he said, "you didn't just make them see you. You made them believe in you." I rested my head on his shoulder. I didn't feel the need to prove anything anymore. No more anger, no more regret. Because for the first time, I knew I had been heard. Not by a conference room, not by the media, but by the very people who once believed I couldn't do it. The Dubai trip ended with a late breakfast on the hotel rooftop where soft sunlight fell over the pastry tray and steaming espresso cups. My mom asked Logan about his upcoming project in Istanbul. My dad sat reading a financial article, nodding occasionally as I talked about my next meeting in Milan. Everything felt strangely natural, as if we'd always shared this rhythm, as if the years of tension and distance had never existed. But I knew, to have this peaceful morning, I had walked a very long road. At the airport, I simply said, "Thank you for coming." No reminders, no quiet hope that they'd change completely. I didn't need that anymore. On the way back to the apartment, Logan held my hand, stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "You know, I've never seen you this strong." I smiled. "It's not because I'm trying to prove anything anymore. It's because I've finally let go." Letting go, not of the dream, but of the expectation of being accepted. And that, more than anything, made me free. I didn't need them to understand every decision I made, every move I packed for, every late meeting across time zones. I didn't need them to love Logan or admire my work. I didn't need them to call me an amazing daughter. The only thing I needed was to invite them to the front row and let them see who I had become. Not to get even, but so I'd never have to bow my head again. Back in Chicago, I received an email from the summit organizers. They wanted to use my speech as the opening feature for next year's program. I reread the excerpt they selected. Some people grow up with support, some fight through doubt, but whoever you are, if you believe in your path, don't wait for a green light. Keep walking. Let them figure out how to catch up. I sat in the studio, sunlight spilling through the window. A design draft for a seaside resort in Greece was open on my screen. My phone rang. A client from Singapore wanted to discuss a new project. My schedule for next month was packed. Florence, Tokyo, then back to New York. But I didn't feel tired. On the contrary, I felt light. I hadn't won through arguments, not by proving myself in every phone call. I didn't need to walk them through every stage of my life to explain it all. I won by staying true to myself and doing it long enough that no one could deny it. Someone once said, "Success is the gift you give yourself." But to me, it's also an unspoken message. You were never wrong for choosing yourself. I still keep the invitation I sent my parents. Cream-colored paper, black ink in a slanted hand, tucked into the drawer beside my bed. Every time I open it by chance, I smile. Not because I remember the doubtful voices, the disappointed glances, or those cold family dinners, but because I remember the moment they sat there, in that lit-up hall, with nothing left to say, except to applaud. And me, with nothing left to wait for, except the peace within myself. Kayla's story is proof that you don't need anyone's approval to become the best version of yourself. She chose her own path, stayed true to her passion, and kept going despite doubt and dismissal. Her success didn't come from pleasing her family. It came from living honestly, standing by her beliefs, and never giving up. Sometimes the sweetest form of revenge is letting those who once doubted you sit front row and watch you shine. What do you think of Kayla's journey and how she reclaimed her worth? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and inspiring stories about family and life. I sat at my drawing desk, staring at the unfinished sketch on my computer screen. The soft light from the small desk lamp cast shadows on my face, creating a mix of light and dark patches in the tiny room. Ever since I was a kid, I loved drawing. Unlike other children who enjoyed playing outside, I just wanted to spend hours with my colored pencils and sketchpad. I created countless characters, from superheroes to magical creatures in my own imaginary world. My family always looked at me strangely, especially my mom. To her, my passion was nothing more than a pointless hobby. "One day you'll have to grow up, Grace," she'd often say, clutching a dish towel tightly in her hands. "You can't live in a fantasy world forever." Whenever she said that, I would just stay silent, plug in my headphones, and keep drawing, letting her words drift away like a passing breeze. My older sister, Emily, was truly the pride of the family. She had always excelled in school, got into a prestigious university, landed a stable office job, and married Ethan, a successful software engineer. Everything about Emily was perfect in my parents' eyes. Our living room wall was filled with her certificates, graduation photos, and happy family portraits of Emily and Ethan. As for me, all I had was a small, quiet corner where I hung my drawing. After graduating from high school, while all my friends were getting ready for college, I shocked my family by deciding not to apply to any university. Instead, I enrolled in an online 3D modeling course. My mom looked at me as if I had just said something unbelievable. "Are you serious, Grace? Everyone in this family goes to college, and you're the only exception," she said, her voice a mix of disappointment and anger. I tried to explain the world of animation on YouTube, how content creators could make a living from their passion. I had followed many popular animation channels, learned how they told stories, built characters, and created captivating short films. But to my family, especially Emily, my explanations sounded no different than childish dreams. "You think YouTube is a real job?" Emily asked, her eyes filled with both surprise and sarcasm. "We all want what's best for you, Grace. You can't rely on your drawings forever." Ethan, sitting next to her, nodded in agreement. "I have a friend at a media company. If you want, I could get you an internship. It's better than staying home drawing random stuff." I knew they didn't believe in me. Their words felt like needles poking into my self-esteem, but I didn't let it stop me. Instead, I became more determined to prove that I could achieve something from my passion. I started my own YouTube channel, uploading short animated videos, even though at first they only got a few views and mostly unkind comments. Emily and Ethan seemed to enjoy criticizing me. At every family dinner, they would find a way to bring up my YouTube channel. "Oh, have you seen Grace's new video?" Emily asked, her lips curling into a smirk. "Look at the comments. People say her characters look like they came from an old video game." Ethan burst into laughter, while my parents just sighed in disappointment. But I didn't give up. Instead of letting their words drag me down, I turned them into motivation. I spent hours studying successful channels, analyzing each frame, learning how they made smooth animations and told engaging stories. I revamped my drawing style, created more dynamic characters, and crafted better narratives. I wasn't just drawing, I was building an entire world, a place where I had full control. At first, my channel had only a handful of subscribers, but slowly the numbers began to grow. One morning I woke up to see that I had reached 500 subscribers. It wasn't a huge number compared to bigger channels, but to me, it felt like a sign that my efforts were finally paying off. I started receiving positive comments and encouragement from complete strangers. They loved my characters, enjoyed the stories I told. It was like I was slowly stepping out of Emily's shadow. However, not everyone was happy about it. Every time I shared a new milestone, Emily would find a way to overshadow it. When I hit 1,000 subscribers, she threw a big birthday party for Ethan on the same day, drawing all the family's attention. When I received an offer to collaborate with a small game developer, Emily announced that she and Ethan were buying a new house, making my news seem insignificant. Despite everything, I kept going. Emily's words no longer bothered me as much. Every day, I dedicated more time to learning, perfecting my skills. With each new video, I could feel myself improving, and not long after, 1,000 subscribers turned into 1,000, then 500,000. My channel started gaining attention from small sponsors, and I began earning a bit of income from ads. I knew the road ahead was still long and filled with challenges, but I also knew that as long as I didn't give up, as long as I kept drawing and telling my stories, there would come a day when I could prove to my family that my passion was not meaningless. But I didn't give up. Instead of letting those words bring me down, I turned them into motivation. I spent hours studying popular channels, analyzing every frame, learning how they created smooth animations and captivating storytelling. I refined my drawing style, developed more vibrant characters, and crafted more engaging stories. I wasn't just drawing, I was building an entire world where I had control over everything. At first, my channel only had a few dozen subscribers, but gradually the numbers began to climb. One morning, I woke up to see that my channel had surpassed 500 subscribers. While that number was nothing compared to larger channels, to me, it was a sign that my efforts were finally starting to pay off. I began receiving positive comments and encouragement from complete strangers. They loved my characters and enjoyed the stories I told. It felt like I was slowly stepping out of Emily's shadow. But not everyone was pleased about it. Whenever I shared a new milestone, Emily found a way to overshadow it. When I hit 1,000 subscribers, she hosted a birthday party for Ethan on the same day, turning all the family's attention to them. When I received a collaboration offer from a small game publisher, Emily announced that she and Ethan were buying a new house, leaving my parents uninterested in my achievement. Even so, I kept going. Emily's words no longer bothered me as much. Every day, I dedicated more time to learning and honing my skills. With each new video release, I could clearly feel my progress. Not long after, 1,000 subscribers turned into 1,000, then 500,000. My channel started catching the attention of small sponsors, and I began earning some income from ads. I knew that the road ahead was still long and filled with challenges, but I also knew that as long as I didn't give up, as long as I kept drawing and telling my stories, there would come a day when I could prove to my family that my passion was not meaningless. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. From those early days with just a handful of subscribers, my YouTube channel had grown to over 1 million followers. It had been a journey filled with sleepless nights in front of my computer screen, countless failed attempts, and those moments when I wanted to quit but reminded myself that I couldn't stop. I had built my own world, where animated characters not only came to life, but also conveyed meaningful and heartfelt stories. Income from YouTube was no longer just spare change. Ads, sponsorships, and even merchandise featuring my characters provided a steady revenue stream. I still remember the first time I signed a sponsorship deal with a renowned graphics software company. The amount they offered was so surprising that I had to reread the email 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. My t-shirts, keychains, and animated character toys sold out within hours of launching. That feeling, a mix of pride and disbelief, was like living in a dream I feared might disappear if I opened my eyes. I decided it was time to share my success with my family. Every month, we still maintained our Sunday dinners at my parents' house. This time, I wanted to give them something special. Mom cooked my favorite honey-glazed roasted chicken, Dad sat in the corner reading his newspaper, and Emily and Ethan, along with their 2 young kids, had arrived early, filling the house with cheerful laughter. Everything felt warm and peaceful. "I have some good news to share," I said, setting my fork down and looking around the dining table. All eyes turned to me. Even Emily stopped talking to Ethan to listen. "I just rented a new apartment downtown. It's not very big, but it's fully equipped, and I'll be moving out next week." The atmosphere seemed to freeze for a moment. My mom dropped her spoon onto the plate, the clatter startling my little niece. Emily blinked repeatedly, while Ethan cleared his throat to mask his surprise. "Are you joking, Grace?" Dad asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and a hint of worry. "No, Dad. I've been saving up from my work on YouTube. I can take care of myself now without needing anyone's support." I smiled, feeling joy radiate from my chest. Emily laughed, but her smile lacked warmth. "I thought you were still just making those little videos. Does YouTube really pay that much?" "It's not just YouTube," I replied calmly. "I've signed sponsorship deals and earned extra income from selling merchandise. Honestly, if I wanted to, I could even buy a house, but for now, I just want to experience living independently in my new apartment." The entire table fell into silence. I couldn't tell if they were surprised by my success or if their preconceived notions about my chosen path had been completely turned upside down. Since that day, everything started to change. My parents, who had always complained about the electric and water bills, suddenly began to casually mention their financial difficulties. My mom said the refrigerator was old and needed to be replaced. Dad hinted that his car was breaking down more often lately. At first, I helped them by covering these expenses. I thought I was showing my love and gratitude to my family. Then there was Emily. She no longer wore her usual fancy clothes, instead opting for more modest outfits, and dark circles began to appear under her eyes from lack of sleep. One time, while we were in the kitchen washing dishes, Emily admitted that Tom had his work hours cut, and the rent and childcare costs were weighing heavily on them. Without hesitation, I set up a monthly transfer to her account, helping her family through the tough times without anyone else knowing. But it seemed that the more I helped, the more I was being taken advantage of. Financial requests from my family kept increasing. My mom started calling me every week, not to ask how I was doing, but to remind me about bills that needed to be paid. My dad no longer hesitated to bring up the costs of home repairs, and Emily didn't think twice before asking me to buy school supplies and new clothes for her kids. Even so, I still felt like I was doing the right thing. I believed that if I had the ability, helping my family was only natural. But I didn't realize that I had become their financial provider, and the warmth of family love had been replaced by the cold numbers on the bills. Eventually, I realized that I needed to do something bigger for myself. I had enough financial stability and skills to take my career to the next level. Instead of just working from home, I decided to rent an office, build a professional animation content production team, and establish my own brand. The new office, with large glass windows and natural light flooding the space, gave me a sense of freedom and creativity. I hired a team of animators, writers, and even a project manager to help me run the company. We started working on bigger projects, not only for YouTube but also in collaboration with brands and television channels. Every workday brought me closer to my dream. I also bought myself a new car. Not something too extravagant, but enough to make me feel like I had truly entered a new chapter of my life. I continued to help my family, still paying bills and supporting Emily, but deep down, I started to feel like something was off. I couldn't tell where real family love ended and where the exploitation began. But things didn't stop there. The first signs of betrayal had started to appear, though I hadn't noticed them yet. And when the truth finally revealed itself, it would shatter everything I had believed in. One Sunday morning, my mom called and asked me to help her clean the house. She said the house was a mess after my dad's 60th birthday party and she needed an extra hand. I agreed immediately, thinking this was a chance to spend time with my family and maybe feel a bit more connected to them. When I arrived, the house was unusually quiet. Mom said everyone else had gone out shopping, leaving just her at home. She led me upstairs to the attic, where old boxes and stacks of documents were piled high. I wanted to organize everything, but there's so much. I don't even know where to start. She sighed. I rolled up my sleeves and began opening each box, sorting through old documents, photographs, and keepsakes. While cleaning, I came across a pale yellow envelope hidden among the old papers. The envelope was relatively new, not yellowed or creased like the other documents. I picked it up and it clearly displayed my parents' names along with the words last will and testament. My heart began to race and a bad feeling washed over me. Hesitantly, I opened the envelope and started reading the neatly printed lines on the legal document. Every word felt like a knife twisting in my mind. The will clearly stated that all assets, including the house, the car, and my parents' savings, would be entirely transferred to Emily after they passed away. My name was nowhere to be found. I stood frozen in the small attic, the world around me spinning. Everything I had done for my family, the bills I paid, the repairs I managed, the shopping for household needs, and even the monthly financial support for Emily, meant nothing. It felt as if the ground had collapsed beneath me. Part of me wanted to believe this was just a misunderstanding, that perhaps there was another will with my name on it, or at least that my parents had a reasonable explanation for this. Hearing footsteps on the stairs, I looked up. My mom was walking in, holding a glass of lemonade. When she saw me with the envelope, her face turned as pale as paper. "Grace, what are you doing?" Her voice trembled. "Mom, what is this?" I asked, my voice so soft it was nearly a whisper. "Why is everything being left to Emily? What about me?" She set the glass on the table, her expression turning colder than I had ever seen. "Emily needs it more than you, Grace. You have your own career, your own company, a stable income. But Emily, she's raising 2 kids, and Tom just lost his job. Don't you think families should support each other?" "But I've been supporting her," I burst out, unable to hold back the hurt. "I've been paying her rent, buying school supplies for the kids. I've done everything I could, but does none of that mean anything to you?" "We never asked you to do those things," she replied, her tone final, as if ending the conversation. That was your choice. And now, you're selfish enough to demand a share of the inheritance? You've already got more than enough. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So this is what you really think of me? That I'm selfish? That I don't deserve anything in this family? My dad appeared at the doorway, clearly having heard the conversation. Grace, you're overreacting. We're family. Emily needs more help than you do. You need to understand that. I understand, I said with a bitter laugh. I understand that I was never truly part of this family. I was just the one standing behind, paying for everything, receiving nothing but contempt in return. I turned around and left the attic without waiting for more excuses. I knew that anything they said now would only hurt me more. As I reached the front door, I heard my mom call out, "If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back." I stopped, turned back to look at them one last time. Fine, I won't come back. I went back to my apartment, slammed the door shut, and let the tears flow freely. I felt empty, as if I had just lost something incredibly precious. It wasn't the money or the assets. It was my trust in my family, in the bond we were supposed to share. In the days that followed, I began cutting off all financial support to my family. There were no more transfers to Emily's account, no more checks to cover my parents' utility bills. I stopped responding to messages, declined calls, and slowly retreated from their lives. When they realized I had truly pulled back, they started to pressure me. Emily took to social media, labeling me as a selfish sister who abandoned her family in difficult times. My mom didn't hesitate to post sad, passive-aggressive status updates, suggesting that I had betrayed them, saying, "A dutiful child would never treat their family this way." But they hadn't expected that other relatives, those who knew what I had done for the family, would speak up in my defense. Every comment under Emily's posts was filled with support for me, recounting the things I had done, reminding them of the gifts and financial help I had given. In the end, their own words backfired. My mom went silent, and Emily stopped posting altogether. I didn't know what they were thinking, but I understood that no explanation was needed anymore. I just wanted peace. To no longer feel exploited. To stop feeling like I had to prove myself to those who never truly valued me. And so, I began to rewrite my own story. No longer a side character in someone else's life, I became the main character in my own journey to find true happiness. I sat in the armchair by the window, the afternoon sunlight filtering through the thin curtains, casting soft streaks of light across the floor. My phone lay quiet on the table, all contact from my family blocked. From the day I walked out of that house, I had decided not to let myself get caught in the cycle of manipulation and hurt ever again. The SUV I had gifted my parents for their 35th wedding anniversary was still under my name. All this time, I had been the one paying for the insurance and maintenance. I remembered the simple joy I felt when I handed them the keys, how their smiles had made it all worthwhile. But now, all of that had turned into nothing but disappointment. I picked up my phone and called the insurance company, requesting the vehicle to be repossessed. The customer service representative's voice was calm and professional. "We'll arrange for a tow truck to retrieve the vehicle within 24 hours, she said. I thanked her, set my phone down, and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The very next morning, my phone exploded with messages and calls from my mom. "Grace, what's going on? Why was my car taken? You can't do this to your own family." I didn't reply. The messages that followed from Emily and Tom weren't much different. They accused me of being selfish, of taking away their livelihood. Silently, I deleted each message, as if erasing every fragment of betrayal they had left behind. A week later, I officially cut off all contact with my family. I changed my phone number, removed them from my social media, and blocked every way they could reach me. I knew this decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary for me to find peace for myself. With the savings from my business and YouTube, I began searching for my dream home. After months of looking, I found a charming little house in the suburbs. The house had a spacious garden, enough room to design my own workspace, and a cozy corner for painting. Owning a place of my own felt truly different, No more scrutinizing looks every time I came home. No more sighs from my mom or passive-aggressive comments from Emily. Each morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows, starting my day with a hot cup of coffee and a true sense of freedom. I focused entirely on my work and YouTube channel. New projects kept rolling in, from short animated videos to collaborations with major brands. My team expanded as well, adding more talented artists and writers to help bring my creative ideas to life. One day, while editing a video, I received an email from YouTube. "Congratulations on reaching 10 million subscribers." I opened the email, looked at that number, and felt my heart swell with happiness. From a girl once mocked for pursuing her passion for animation, I had become an influential content creator with millions of fans who loved the stories I shared. I hosted a live stream to thank my audience. Messages of congratulations and support poured in from around the world. A young girl messaged me, saying that watching my videos helped her discover her passion for drawing and inspired her to pursue it. A young man shared that my stories helped him get through lonely and difficult times. I realized that I wasn't just creating entertainment, but also providing real value to others. On late afternoons, I often sat on my porch, watching the sunset and wondering if I was on the right path. But every time I looked at my warm, inviting home and my workspace filled with inspiration, I knew I had made the right choices. I no longer felt sadness or regret about my family. They had chosen their path, and I had chosen mine. No more unanswered financial support, no more feeling exploited. I was living my own life. A life full of freedom and color, just like the drawings I used to create as a child. My new life was free from the fake family dinners and double-sided conversations. Instead, I had genuine friends, colleagues who loved their work, and a supportive community of viewers. I started traveling, capturing my journeys through short animated videos, sharing new stories, and continuing to create without limits. I understood that sometimes letting go is the only way to save yourself. And I had done just that. I found true happiness by putting myself first, by daring to say no to things that no longer fit into my life. My story doesn't end here, it's only just beginning. I know the road ahead is still long, but I'm ready to face any challenges, because this time, I am the one writing my story, and no one can take that pen away from me. My story is proof that sometimes real happiness comes from having the courage to let go of toxic relationships, even if they are family. From someone who was always underestimated, I found my worth through my efforts and passion. No longer being taken advantage of, I am free to create, build my career, and live a more fulfilling life. Sometimes, moving forward requires the bravery to close old doors and open new chapters for yourself. What do you think about Grace's story and her brave decisions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit follow to catch more inspiring and meaningful stories about life and family. The measuring spoon clattered against the metal bowl, echoing harshly in the quiet of the bakery kitchen. I clenched my hands, trying to steady my trembling fingers. I had made over 100 wedding cakes before, but none had ever felt as difficult as this one. It wasn't because of the technique or the client's elaborate demands, but because of the name on the contract, Ryan Anderson, the man who had once bluntly told me I would never escape the label of a small-town girl with no future. I am Emily Harper, owner of The Sweet Spot, a small but cozy bakery nestled in the heart of Willow Creek. From simple, sugar-dusted cupcakes to extravagant wedding cakes, I poured all my love and passion into every creation. But this time, my own hands betrayed me, as they wouldn't stop shaking while I prepared the wedding cake for Ryan and his perfect fiancé. "Emily, you need to cancel this contract right now." Julia's voice pulled me out of my spiraling thoughts. She stood leaning against the kitchen counter, her brown eyes filled with worry. Julia wasn't just my best friend, but also my right hand at the bakery. "This isn't a good idea. You're only hurting yourself." "I can't, Julia," I replied, my hands still stirring the batter. "This is a huge opportunity for our bakery to get noticed. Do you know how many potential clients will be there?" "You're talking about the wealthy guests at Ryan's wedding," Julia sighed, stepping closer and grabbing my wrist, forcing me to stop. We're talking about Ryan, the guy who looked down on you, who hurt you. You don't owe him anything. I pulled my hand away, the stubbornness inside me flaring up like a fire. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not doing this for Ryan or anyone else. I'm doing this for myself, for the sweet spot. Julia looked at me intently, her eyes gentle but firm. Then at least let me go with you. You shouldn't face them alone. I shook my head. There's no need. This is business. It's just a regular contract. Just a regular contract? Julia raised an eyebrow. You say that, but do you really believe it? Don't you see how they look at you? Ryan, his friends, and even his new fiancé? They all still think you're just that same little dreamer girl from before. I stayed silent, feeling Julia's words like needles pricking at my pride. Yes, they could think whatever they wanted, but I would not let them see me hurt. I would show them my strength, independence, and success. The oven timer beeped, and I quickly pulled on gloves, taking out the tray of golden, fluffy cake layers. The rich aroma of butter and vanilla filled the room, which usually brought me comfort, but today it only reminded me of old memories. Memories of those last days with Ryan, when I had baked his favorite cookies, only to receive coldness and bitter words in return. Don't let them hurt you again, Julia said softly, but I could hear the genuine concern and worry in her voice. I won't, I smiled, but inside waves of emotion crashed. They can say whatever they want. I'll let my work speak for itself. The afternoon passed in a blur of whisks and vibrant buttercream colors. Julia stayed with me until the sun set, its golden rays streaming through the window, casting long shadows on the bakery's vintage tile floor. Before leaving, she didn't forget to remind me to call her if things went south. When I was finally alone, I opened the detailed wedding cake contract. 6 tiers of white chocolate and raspberry, adorned with hand-painted sugar flowers in a classic and elegant style. The cost of this cake was probably more than the first car I ever owned. My fingers traced over the meticulous specifications, and memories of Ryan mocking my dream of opening a bakery came rushing back. A baker? Come on, Emily, you're capable of so much more. Move to the city with me. I'll get you a real job. The old words echoed in my mind, but instead of bringing pain, they only fueled my determination. I picked up my phone and called Megan, an exceptional sugar artist I had collaborated with before. Megan, I need your help. Can you come to the bakery tomorrow morning? I want to create something truly special for this wedding. She agreed immediately, her cheerful voice over the phone bringing me a sense of relief. I looked out the window as the streetlights began to flicker on, casting warm, golden streaks against the night sky. I promised myself that tomorrow, I would walk into that wedding with my head held high. They could whisper, they could judge, but the only thing they would remember was the stunning cake I created. I locked up the bakery, shadows beginning to creep into every corner. In the quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat, each thud echoing with resolve. Tomorrow would be a long day, but I knew as long as I held on to my confidence and self-respect, I could face anything. In my mind, a strong and resolute promise resonated. This time, I won't let anyone underestimate me, Ryan. I'll show them all that the small-town girl from Willow Creek can achieve far more than they ever thought possible. As my old Honda rumbled down the gravel path leading to the Adams estate, I felt my heart pounding so hard it seemed almost audible. The estate sat in the middle of sprawling grounds, with pristine white walls, marble columns, and meticulously manicured gardens. This was the venue for Ryan Anderson and Madison Adams' wedding, the perfect couple in the eyes of high society. But to me, it was just a grand theater for a parade of pretense. I turned off the engine, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Immediately, the eyes of the elegantly dressed guests turned toward me. Under their scrutinizing gazes, I maintained a light smile, my hand gripping the portfolio that held the sketches of the 6-tier wedding cake that Megan and I had meticulously crafted. Oh, look who's here! The little baker girl from Willow Creek. A drawn-out, mocking voice came from ahead. I saw Ben, Ryan's best friend, standing with a group of people, a glass of wine in hand, his green eyes shining with disdain. I didn't think you actually had the guts to show up, Ben continued, the others around him chuckling, as if they had just heard the best joke of the day. I'm a professional, Ben, I said calmly, and I'm here for work. But I see you've kept your old habit of drinking early in the morning. A few in the group couldn't help but snicker softly. The smile on Ben's face stiffened, but before he could respond, a different voice cut in. Emily Harper, right? I'm so glad you made it. I turned to meet Madison's gaze. She stood there in a simple yet elegant white dress, her blonde hair neatly pinned up, her face naturally made up but unable to hide the traces of exhaustion. I'm glad to meet you too, Madison, I replied, extending my hand. I brought the sketches and sample cakes. I hope they match your theme. Madison nodded, a strange glimmer flashing through her blue eyes. Can we talk privately? There are a few more details I'd like to discuss about the wedding cake design. I followed Madison inside the estate. The lavish interior was overwhelming, but I kept my composure. When the door to the living room closed behind us, Madison's demeanor changed immediately. Would you like something to drink, tea or coffee? She asked, but I sensed something off in her tone. Tea would be great, I replied, trying to keep my voice natural. Madison poured tea from a white porcelain teapot, her movements slow and deliberate. As she sat down across from me, the atmosphere grew strangely heavy. Emily, I know this might be a strange request, but I need your help, Madison said quietly, her eyes not leaving the teacup in her hands. Help? What do you mean? Madison looked up, her blue eyes now filled with worry. My family. They're not as perfect as everyone thinks. Adams Corporation, my family's company, isn't just about real estate and investments. They've been involved in illegal activities, pushing hundreds of families into hardship for profit. Her words left me stunned. Adams Corporation was known as one of the biggest corporations in the region, sponsoring numerous charitable projects and always appearing in the news with a pristine image. Are you serious? I whispered, my eyes wide. Madison nodded, her voice lowering. They buy up low-income housing, spread bad rumors to drive down property values, then use their influence to push local governments into approving new developments. They demolish community centers, schools, even public housing, just to turn them into luxury apartments or shopping centers. I set my teacup down, struggling to remain calm. And Ryan, does he know about this? He does, Madison smirked. Not only does he know, but he's also involved. He even helps my family handle financial documents, forging numbers to make everything look legitimate. A chill ran down my spine. Ryan, the man who once said I was ambitious enough to pursue great things, was now part of something so unethical. So, what do you want me to do? I asked, though I already had a sense of where this was going. Madison looked straight into my eyes, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. I want to expose the truth, and I think this wedding is the perfect opportunity. There will be so many reporters, business people, and influencers attending. If everything is revealed right in front of them, my family won't be able to hide it anymore. But why me? I questioned. I'm just a small-town baker from Willow Creek. Exactly, Madison said. They would never suspect you, someone they think has no influence, no ability to cause harm. You could help me hide the evidence within the wedding cake decorations, get it into the hands of the reporters without anyone suspecting. The air in the room grew heavy. Part of me wanted to refuse, to back away from this whirlwind of trouble. But another part, the part that had been hurt and belittled by these very people, urged me to move forward. I need to see the evidence, I said, my voice firm. Madison smiled, and for the first time, I saw a hint of relief in her eyes. I'll show you, but think carefully, Emily. If we do this, there's no turning back. I am already here, I replied, feeling determination fill every cell of my body. And this time, I won't let anyone underestimate me again. Madison nodded and extended her hand. I took it, a silent promise passing between us. We would do this, not just for ourselves, but for those who had been crushed by the Addams family. And maybe, in this risky game, I could find my true strength. Not just as a small-town baker, but as someone who could make a big change. As I left the Addams estate that afternoon, I felt like I had stepped into an uncontrollable whirlwind. Madison's words still echoed in my mind. They will never see you coming. She was right. Ryan and the Addams family had always viewed me as nothing more than a small-town baker, not worth their attention. But they were wrong, and this time I would show them my real strength. I returned to the sweet spot and immediately called Julia and Megan for an emergency meeting. We sat around the old wooden table in the back room, surrounded by the sweet smell of butter and sugar, but none of us felt at ease. I know this sounds crazy, but Madison is telling the truth, I began, my hands twisting under the table. Her family has done horrible things to get rich, and she wants us to help expose it right at the wedding. Wait, you mean we're going to hide evidence inside the wedding cake? Megan exclaimed, her brown eyes widening. Exactly, I nodded, then opened my laptop to display the documents Madison had sent me. She has tons of evidence, from shady real estate contracts to falsified financial documents. We're going to hide USB drives containing the evidence inside the sugar flowers on the wedding cake. No one will suspect a thing. Julia was silent for a moment, her eyes focused on the screen. This is a big chance to bring them down. But Emily, if we get caught, what will happen to us? We have to be careful, I admitted. If we fail, they could use their power and money to threaten and punish us. But if we succeed, we won't just protect many families. We'll also restore our own dignity. Megan pressed her lips together, then stood up and rummaged through a cabinet for a small silicone mold. If we make hollow sugar flowers, we could easily hide the USBs without anyone noticing. Julia stood as well, pulling out a notebook and starting to draft a detailed plan. We need a clear strategy, from when the cake is transported and set up to when the evidence is released. And we need a trustworthy reporter. Madison already has some connections, I said. She'll make sure those reporters are at the wedding. We just need to ensure the evidence gets into their hands at the right moment. The days that followed were filled with tension, but also brimming with hope. During the day, we kept the sweet spot open as usual, serving customers with sweet cupcakes and aromatic coffee. But when the shop closed, we transformed the small kitchen into a secret operations center. Megan skillfully crafted delicate sugar flowers, each petal as fragile as morning dew, yet hollow enough to hold tiny USB drives. Julia coordinated with Madison, finalizing signals and the exact timing for the plan. I meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, ensuring all documents were in the right place. One afternoon, as we were busy with the sugar flowers, the bakery door suddenly swung open. I looked up, my heart nearly stopping when I saw Sylvia, Madison's sister, step inside. "Oh, hello, Sylvia." I forced a calm tone, but my hands, hidden behind my back, were already clammy with sweat. "Are you here to place an order?" Sylvia smiled faintly, but her sharp eyes betrayed her suspicion. "I just wanted to drop by and make sure everything is going well. Madison said you were handling the wedding cake, and I want to ensure everything is perfect." "Of course," Megan replied swiftly, her hands never pausing as she decorated the sugar petals on a sample cake. "We are fully prepared. I promise you won't be disappointed." Sylvia moved slowly around the shop, her gaze scrutinizing every corner. "It's quite surprising. I didn't think a small bakery like this could manage such an extravagant wedding cake." Julia chuckled lightly, not showing a hint of worry. "We've catered many large events in the area. You can check out recent articles. The sweet spot has been featured in several wedding magazines." Sylvia stopped in front of a completed sugar flower, her finger gently brushing against its petal. "These flowers are exquisite. Can I see inside one? I'm curious if there's anything special about them." My heart pounded erratically, but Megan quickly picked up another flower from a nearby tray, one that did not contain a USB. Here, you can see we use 3D modeling techniques to achieve such sharp details. Sylvia stared at Megan for a few seconds, then gave a cold smile. I'm just kidding. I must be too sensitive. Anyway, I hope the cake will be perfect on the big day. When the door closed behind Sylvia, all three of us exhaled a collective sigh of relief. Julia placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice full of concern. She suspects us. We need to move faster than planned. I nodded, my eyes still fixed on the door. Madison needs to know about this immediately. We have to accelerate the plan before Sylvia can warn her family. Julia picked up the phone and started calling Madison. Megan carefully sorted through the completed sugar flowers, inspecting each one with precision. I looked around my small bakery, feeling like everything familiar had become part of a quiet battle. But I knew that to achieve justice and protect those who had been hurt, I needed to keep going. This was no longer just about revenge or proving my worth. It was an opportunity for me, Julia, and Megan to stand up, using our baking skills to expose the truth. We weren't heroes, but sometimes, ordinary people could make an extraordinary difference. The wedding at the Adams estate unfolded under a clear blue sky, sunlight filtering gently through the old trees, creating a fairy tale setting. Guests filled the venue, their gowns sparkling with metallic hues, tailored suits polished to perfection, and classical music flowing softly from the orchestra. I stood in a quiet corner, my hand gripping my phone, waiting for Madison's signal. The 6-tier wedding cake, a masterpiece crafted by me, Megan, and Julia, stood proudly in the center of the grand hall. The delicate sugar flowers, each hiding a USB filled with evidence, looked like living works of art. Just one signal from Madison, and all the dark secrets of the Adams family would be revealed. Madison appeared at the end of the hall, dressed in a pure white gown, her appearance graceful but her eyes filled with resolve. Beside her, Ryan smiled, his hands tightly holding his bride's, completely unaware of the approaching storm. As they reached the stage, Sylvia stepped up to the microphone, her face radiating a cold confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sylvia began, her voice clear in the spacious room. "Before the ceremony begins, I'd like to say a few words." Madison glanced at Sylvia, and for a brief moment, I saw her shoulders tense. I lightly tapped my phone screen, sending a short message to Julia and Megan. "Get ready. I just want to thank everyone for being here today," Sylvia continued, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "The Adams family has always prided itself on honesty and transparency in everything we do. We always put the community's interests first." Madison suddenly snatched the microphone from Sylvia's hand, plunging the entire hall into silence. "Transparency?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Are you talking about our family?" The tension in the air was suffocating. Ryan grabbed Madison's hand, whispering something, but she pushed him away. "Madison, what are you doing?" Ryan's voice trembled. "I just want everyone to know the truth," Madison said, her eyes blazing. "The truth about what the Adams family has done. Shady real estate deals, community centers demolished to build luxury buildings, families forced onto the streets because they couldn't afford to stay." The guests began to murmur. Many pulled out their phones, recording what was happening. "Enough!" Sylvia screamed, lunging forward to grab the microphone. "You're ruining—" "No, you're the one who ruined it," Madison shot back. "And I'm not the only one who knows the truth." That was the signal. I pressed the button on my phone, activating the USBs to release the documents. The reporters we had contacted earlier began receiving the files, their phone and tablet screens lighting up with documents, emails, and forged contracts. Ryan looked around, his expression shifting from confusion to panic. "Madison, stop! You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Madison replied, her voice unwavering. "And this is only the beginning." The grand doors swung open and a group of police officers entered, led by Detective Collins, the contact Tabitha had helped us reach. He held up an arrest warrant, his voice calm but firm. Ryan Anderson, Sylvia Adams, and all parties involved, you are under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and public property destruction. The room erupted into chaos. Guests tried to back away, many filming and taking pictures. Reporters rushed forward, microphones and cameras aimed at the Adams family. Sylvia attempted to break free but was quickly restrained by the police. Ryan stood frozen, his eyes fixed on Madison, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. "Emily Harper!" Ryan shouted when he saw me standing nearby. "You did this! You'll pay for this!" "No, Ryan." I stepped forward, keeping a safe distance. "You dug your own hole. I just helped you fall into it faster." Madison looked at me, her smile gentle but filled with meaning. "Thank you, Emily. It's because of you that the truth came to light today." As the police led away the culprits, I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. People began leaving the estate, the wedding completely shattered. But for me and Madison, it wasn't an end. It was a new beginning. 3 months later, I stood before the new sign of the bakery, now named Sweet Endings and Beginnings. The former Adams Corporation building had been transformed into a community center with the help of charitable organizations and generous donors. Here, we hosted cooking classes, job training, and support services for families affected by the Adams family's projects. Madison became my partner in the bakery. She left behind her luxurious but deceitful life to start fresh, and she did amazingly well. Megan and Julia continued to stand by my side, and together, we didn't just make sweet cakes, but also built a real community. One afternoon, as the gentle sunset bathed our small street, I looked around the bustling bakery, filled with happy customers and the lively sound of laughter. A group of children had just finished a baking class, proudly holding cupcakes they had decorated themselves, their faces beaming with joy. Madison walked over, handing me a cup of hot coffee. "We did it, Emily. We really changed everything." The wind chimes rang softly as the door to Sweet Endings and Beginnings opened. I looked up from the coffee counter, smiling to welcome a new group of customers. They were families who had recently moved into the community housing we had helped create. The children's eyes sparkled as they saw the colorful cupcakes in the display case, and I saw a bit of myself in them, a little girl who once dreamed of sweet things despite the injustices and hurts around her. Madison emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of freshly baked treats, the steam rising in gentle swirls. "Who wants to try some hot chocolate cake?" she called out cheerfully, and the kids responded with excited shouts. Watching the scene, I couldn't help but think back to that chaotic wedding day, the day all the secrets came to light and justice was finally served. Our revenge wasn't about hurting anyone, but about righting wrongs and bringing fairness to those affected. We didn't just reclaim our own dignity, but opened new doors for the entire community. The old Adams Corporation building was now a vibrant place. It hosted life skills classes, job counseling sessions, and play activities for children. We had transformed what once symbolized greed and selfishness into a beacon of hope and sharing. "Everyone loves your wedding cake." An elderly gentleman approached the counter, his kind eyes peering over his glasses. "You created a miracle, not just with the cake, but with this whole town." "I just did what needed to be done," I replied. But warmth filled my heart. In the past few days, we received countless thank yous from families we had helped and from those who had once been wronged by the Adams family. It made me realize that sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud or hurtful. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is living well and turning setbacks into opportunities for positive change. Julia came over, handing me a fresh newspaper. On the front page was the newly opened community center, with the proud headline, "From the ruins of the past, a new community rises." "We did it," Julia said, her voice filled with emotion. "Who would have thought a small bakery could make such a big difference?" "Yes," I smiled, watching the customers enjoy their sweet treats. "And the best part is, we did it with perseverance, courage, and faith in ourselves." The sky outside was a deep blue, and the golden sunlight poured through the glass windows, casting shimmering patterns on the old tile floor. I knew the road ahead would be long, with more challenges to face, but now I felt ready to embrace it all. And in the warm space of our little bakery, surrounded by children's laughter and the sweet aroma of butter and vanilla, I finally felt a true sense of peace. A new beginning, a new journey, where sweetness came not only from the cakes, but also from the hearts of everyone around us. Emily Harper's story is not just a tale of sweet revenge, but a powerful testament to the strength of perseverance and courage. From a girl who was once belittled, Emily rose up, turning her wounds into motivation and using her passion for baking to bring justice and positive change to her community. Her story reminds us that sometimes the best revenge isn't about causing harm, but about living well and creating true value in life. What do you think about Emily Harper's story and her journey to justice through courage and perseverance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow our channel to catch more inspiring stories about family life and valuable life lessons.